And that was some live pages from Night Owl, courtesy of Brian Martin. Night Owl BBS is live and online right now. You can dial into it, so to speak, by nightowlbbs.dnss.net on port 6400. Alternatively, you can visit in your web browser live. The address on screen now is fish.ccl4.org/js-night-owl. And once again, a huge thank you to Brian Martin for putting together that presentation and pages from his Night Owl BBS. This is Wi-Fi Sheep Live. A very good evening to you. It's December the 24th, 2024. It's Christmas Eve. Hello everybody, how are you doing? Good evening, Merry Christmas. It is just gone 10 to 11 GMT, that's 22:51 right here in the UK as I speak. How are you doing? A very warm welcome to Christmas, or shall I say Xmas live here on youtube.com/Wi-Fi Sheep with me, Tom, with my bar humbug itchy Christmas hat, which yeah, there we are, there we go, which I wore this a very long time ago when we were doing the Wi-Fi Sheep radio show, the original thing that we did that sort of sparked this channel. So back in 2016, I think it was Christmas 2016, and I actually, last time I wore this hat for the live stream then. So we found it out. It's been in the attic in store and it's really itchy and uncomfortable, so I would like to take it off at some point, but for the moment, here it is. I'm wearing it. So how are you doing? Thanks so much for joining me for your joining me for Christmas Eve right here on the channel. A few things I would like to share with you, really. A few things I'd like to look at this evening. So hope you're doing well. I hope everyone's got a hot cup of cocoa or tea or something. I know I have tea. Not hit the alcohol just yet, but there's still time. So hoping to be with you through to about midnight GMT. So what's that? 00:30 hours. There you are. Gonna work that one out. We should be with you for about midnight Christmas Day. Before we go any further, just want to say huge thank you to all our Patreon and channel members. There they all are on screen now. The brilliant and very kind people that kindly support this channel either through Patreon or directly on YouTube via the YouTube channel members scheme. If you want to join them on Patreon, it's patreon.com/Wi-Fi Sheep. Or alternatively, as I've just mentioned, the YouTube channel members scheme, which starts from 99p all the way up to £2.99. That's British pound sterling. It will be converted into your local currency, or if possible, it will be in US dollars if it's not possible to convert into your local currency. And again, once again, thank you so much to everyone who is supporting me right here on YouTube. And also, thank you to everyone who is in the chat. I'm just looking at the chat now. Yes, nice hat. Thank you. Yes, it's itchy and horrible and made of that sort of felt stuff that's, yeah. And doesn't suit me, but never mind. I will carry on wearing it. Right. Yeah, I should have written down what I wanted to do tonight, but I have a rough idea. A few things I want to look at, share with you live. And first of all, I want to show you this. Right. So, what do you think this is? I'll get out the bag. By the way, that is the actual packets they came in. Okay, this is from work, and here it is. I suppose I could try and there we are. Okay, does anyone in the chat want to have a guess? It is a bit of a trick question because you're probably going to guess exactly what I guessed, because I saw this. I'll just give it a minute if anyone wants to dial in on the chat, have a guess what you think this is. So basically, I saw this. We had a load of them individually packaged like this, and they were ordered in like 2018 or something. It was just old stock that was found, and I honestly assumed it's a transistor. It's probably, just looking at it, you'd say that was an NPN transistor. Pretty bog standard, pretty normal. It's not a transistor. It's a diode. King Europe 1. It's a diode. Yes, a doodad. It's a doodad. I thought you said diode then. I was going to be, that's really smart. No, doodad. Yeah. Right. Basically, I thought that was like a transistor because it looks exactly like. That's a bit out of focus. There we are. Exactly like a transistor. Okay. It's not a transistor. That, believe it or not, is a 4K EEPROM, as in electronic programmable memory. And I'm like, you are kidding me. That is not an I have never seen EEPROMs, right? This isn't an EEPROM, but I'll just give you an idea. So EEPROMs traditionally come in sort of chip form, like that. Yeah? With legs, little plastic or ceramic, square body or rectangle body with legs. That's traditionally an EEPROM. That, by the way, isn't an EEPROM, but it looks very similar to one. That looks like a transistor. Now, the problem is that in the environment at work, and for those of you just joining who don't know, I work for a university as a technician. A lot of our students are going to be doing electronics for the very first time. And so they're going to be handling and learning these parts for the very first time. And if these got mixed up and put in with the NPN transistors, and I would assume it's a transistor, my colleagues and the lecturers and all the professionals would assume it's a transistor. There's no way that I would say that was an EEPROM, but apparently it is. And what I did is I had a quick look on, here we are, I do have it. So I had a quick look on the old internet, and I actually brought up the data sheet for it. So the actual number, and I did look with a magnifying glass what the number was. So it's DS24B33, okay, and it's a one-wire 4K EEPROM. And I have never, honestly, I've been doing electronics kind of on or off in a professional capacity for at least 15 years now. I have never heard or seen something packaged like this. To the point, I thought this has to be a mistake. This can't be real. But if you scroll down, and there it is. So it comes in, you can see there the traditional package form, and then you can see next to it this bizarre, utterly bizarre EEPROM. And if you look at the side view, the sort of middle diagram, it's the side view, right? So you've got 3 pins, or 3 legs, I should say. But look at leg 3. I don't know if I can highlight that, and if you can see leg 3, it says no connect. And I'm just like, are you absolutely kidding me? So out of all the 3 legs, which is nothing for running an EEPROM, like one of the legs you don't even connect up. It's a 2-legged EEPROM. And I'm just like, oh my God. I appreciate that's super geeky and nerdy, but if anyone in the chat has ever seen anything like that, let me know. Because is this just me? Or is this really obscure? But as I said, the problem is, and I don't know why these were ordered. They were ordered some time ago by a colleague that's now long gone. So they've just found this stock. And I'm like, if that got into the, put in the wrong pile or put in the wrong drawer or something for students to take out as components, we'd be trying to wire those up as transistors. It looks like a transistor. It's ridiculous. I'm trying to think, have I got a transistor handy to show you the difference between the two of them? And don't think I have offhand, but yeah. So I just wanted to share that with you because of the weird oddities. I'm going to put that back in its massive bag that it came with. The reason I was given that is we are not going to be using them at work, or very unlikely to be using them. So it was sort of one was given to me. So what, they're worth about 68 pence apparently. So what's that? 68 pence is just under a US dollar, something like that. And basically I said, do you want to take one and see if you can load some data on it? So that might be something I might just do out of sheer curiosity, but yeah. Right, something else I've been working on. So I've been trying to have a few days off from the last time we were together. So the last time we were together obviously was the last edition of 8 till Late, which was Saturday just gone. So we're now here on a Tuesday night going into Wednesday for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. In that time, I have actually managed to do a little bit of work on a few things I wanted to do. So just go back to overview again. I want to show you this, which if you follow me and the Tiny Basic Computers program or series, Project Rio Tiny Basic Computers, you'll know that I am building, or together we're building a prototype 8-bit computer system of our own, programmable with Tiny Basic. One of the things I wanted to do was build a new prototype, and I had bought these new sort of industrial, heavy-duty industrial microcontrollers. So these are still in the AVR family. That's the same chipset that's used for Arduino, but these are known as Mighty Core chips. They are proper 40-pin DIP package ICs, so they're the same sort of footprint, if you like, as your 6502s, your Z80s. And basically, I was thinking about using these as the base for a potential next generation Project Rio kit system, with the idea of actually moving from self builds to a kind of like a kit system. But I needed to experiment with them. So I've had these a while actually. Originally I started with the Atmega 12, we can see it there, 1284P. This chip, let's see if I can get that one out. This is how they come packaged, by the way, when you order them. Oop, right, that clip's gone flying. Okay, so this is normally how they package them. So this is the 1284P, and it's actually one of the more powerful chipsets available. So it's the same AVR 8-bit architecture that we've been using. So the source code that I'm using for Tiny Basic is compatible with this to 100% pinout and binary compatible. This chip boasts a very generous 16K of onboard static RAM and a 4K EEPROM space. So it has 4K of EEPROM, ironically the same as our little diode or a little transistor, but 16K. One of the big problems we were having with using the, if I got one, yes I have, here we are. So this was the original chip we were basing on. This is the Atmega 328P, which is a 28, 26, 28, can't remember pin, but anyway. And we were building the system. If you were building the original black and white systems, or even one of the very early color systems, you'd have been using this. And this is the chip that comes on the Arduino Uno or the Arduino Nano. I think it's a couple of others it comes on as well. And these chips have 2K of RAM, 1K EEPROM. So we got a basic interpreter running, and many of you will notice if you've done the project that basically basic uses roughly 1K of RAM, just under 1K. So it only gives you 1K, or 1,000 bytes, roughly speaking, of RAM to actually write any basic in. And that's okay, but it starts to get a bit restrictive. And then the minute you add a color system where you have more commands to instruct color, you start running out of space very quick. So I was wanting something a little bit more, well, we needed more memory, basically, more RAM. And that's why we switched over to, and I don't have one handy, unfortunately, but we switched over to the Mega boards, the 2560s, I think they are, which was an all-in-one microcontroller, which is one of the largest 8-bit AVR microcontrollers that Arduino actually do. But what I wanted to do was to find something in a much larger traditional chip form. And that's where these come in. So the 1284Ps are ideal and would be absolutely ideal because they're double the capacity of the 8K on the Arduino Mega, but they do cost a little bit in real terms. Now they cost some, I've seen them between sort of £7 to £12, which isn't horrendous, but if you think you scale that up, that does start to cost. So I was looking, well, is there an alternative to try and keep costs down that's still better than the 328p? And one solution, which is what's actually in here, so I bought two, was the 644, which has absolutely identical size and identical pinout. Both chips look practically the same, and again exactly the same architecture, memory map, etc. The 644 is a bit of a nice compromise. So it's 4K of RAM and 2K of EEPROM. So basically it's double the capacity of the 328p. And that is probably enough for doing a better base level system, with a view that because these two are completely pin compatible with each other, is it will be very easy to simply take this out of a future PCB build machine and upgrade it. So you go from 4 straight to 16K just by literally putting another chip in, and it would upgrade the whole system. So that's kind of where I'm at and what I'm thinking at the moment. The advantage of the 644 is they're under £7, about £6 something each, and because no one really wants them, because everyone wants the 1284, so they're becoming extremely difficult to get hold of some days, 644 seem to be in plentiful supply. So I'm kind of thinking that's going to be my target chip going forward, that I've got a base for the 644 with a view that all the code and everything will be upgradable and expandable to the 1284 for looking at a larger near future kit computer system. I wasn't really keen on doing kits. I still kind of am not, but I might be persuaded as a sort of pure hobby thing to look at doing maybe some kind of official Wi-Fi sheet kit computer type thing. At the moment, I'm just playing around with stuff, and I will be making a video shortly. So that's the architecture, but I needed some infrastructure for working with these chips. Now, Arduino itself don't do a board for these microcontrollers. So these are, I say old school, it's all pretty new architecture, but these are sort of proper industrial microcontroller chips. They're designed for industrial applications, not really for the home user tinkering market, but we're using them for. So there's no Arduino board that actually use one of these. What you can get, and what I got offline off eBay, was these kits. So this is one I've soldered up literally in the time since we were last together. And this is basically, well, you can see what it is. It effectively creates a microcontroller board with interface pins for a serial to USB interface, power, reset, and power light, and pin 13 clipped to or wired straight to the flash. So for those of you that know the blink command with Arduino IDE, this basically does basically, that's the same thing. It blinks the LED on because it's tied direct to line D13. So I bought this very, very cheap. This about, what was it, £6, something like that. Again, very, very cheap, and I've wired it up. All the parts came with it. I've added some extra pin header. The pin header on the outside actually wasn't included, but everything else was, including the chip. So it was quite a good deal. And I've been using this for testing. But one thing I did find, and I kind of knew this when I bought them, is because these are industrial microcontrollers, they don't come with the bootloaders, which means they don't work. You can't upload code for Arduino IDE to them because it won't see them and they won't see the IDE. So you need to actually install a bootloader. To do that, I had to build a special bootloader machine. And that's what this breadboard contraption is right here. So this is a bootloader. There's a program in the Arduino IDE called Arduino ISP, I think it is. And it's meant to be for the Arduino Unos, but the Nano, which uses, again, the same 6502 Atmega 328 chip, which is basically, it's the same chip, just a different form factor. So that and that, believe me, are exactly the same chip. It's the same chip on the Unos and the Nanos use it. So I've just opted to use a much smaller Nano. And the Nano acts as the interface for the programmer. So what you do is, find what I've done with my chip now, I'll put it somewhere. I'll put it away is what I've done. There you are, right. So what you do is you put your chip in that you want to burn a bootloader to. Bear in mind, this isn't programming, this is just for burning the bootloader. And I went with one of these zero insertion force or ZIF sockets, just so you're not bending it in and out of the pins all the time, or a socket. So there you go. Right, that goes down like that. You plug that via USB into the Arduino IDE, but instead of uploading a program, there's an option to burn bootloader. With this already having its ISP code uploaded in the normal way, and the way it's wired in, and bearing in mind we have a separate 16 megahertz clock crystal here, this actually flashes bootloaders, and it does the bootloader for the 644, and I've also done the bootloader. That's why I've put BL, which you just see BL on, to say that these have actually had the bootloaders installed, and it does it for the same chip. So this will be my bootloader programmer. Now for actually programming or uploading code in the traditional way, well, these will then behave like a big Arduino. So you can output your chip into this, which becomes effectively a large Arduino board, but you have no USB interface. So you need one of these, which is a serial to USB interface, and these are extremely cheap, and they come ready made like this. This one, the chip on top here, which I was trying to masquerade as a EEPROM, it's not an EEPROM, it's a CH340, which is a very common driver chip now, serial interface. So it's USB to serial interface, and that then plugs very neatly, these two, as if they're made for each other. They were bought separately, by the way, but that plugs into there. And then if you have the correct micro USB, you could plug into the computer. I didn't, so I had to get an adapter. When there's a will, there's a way. So that then adapts it up to a mini USB, and then I can go mini USB to USB-A and plug in. And in fact, I think we could actually attempt to plug in, if you're curious to see. So we'll just plug into the PC. It's always risky to plug into the streaming PC because it knocks everything offline, but let's give it a go, see what happens. Let's live dangerously for once. Okay, so if we now go to Arduino IDE, so that's all plugged in and fine. Let's just set this up correctly. So, and I appreciate you can't see the pop-up menus, but if I go, I think it's on port 6. Now, if I hit reset, hello, anyone home? We were working before, we're not working now. Why does this always happen when I try and do something live? Best will in the world. I try and do something live and it always does this. This, trust me when I say this worked perfectly before. So we should be on 6 then. Are we on 6? COM port 4. Oh, there we go. Right, it's on the wrong COM port. Okay, there we go. Yes, I don't know what it is with the Windows version of Arduino IDE, but it doesn't half like to mess up. So, right, we're on COM port 4. And you can see I've actually got the version of the Tiny Basic. This is actually Project Rio's Tiny Basic kernel actually running. So I've managed to install it. Now, you'll notice that the bytes free, it's 1276 bytes free. So that's just over 1K. You're going, hang on, it's a 4K chip. Basically, this version is Project Rio, which is version 5 of Tiny Basic, that I then backported off the Mega chips back to the 328p. And I've just literally uploaded it as if it was the 328p. So it's not memory mapped to use the rest of the RAM at the moment. I couldn't put Project Rio on because that's designed for 6K, 6 to 8K boards. So it would go over the top of memory and start wrapping around memory and probably destroying the bootloader or doing something terrible. So I thought if I put the original 2K basic on, then that's probably safe just to test. But what you're looking at in the serial here is actually the Tiny Basic interpreter running, and we can actually ask it instructions. So I should be able to go hash. Oops, my keyboard is back to front, unfortunately, because I haven't set the keyboard up. Where's hashtag gone? It was here a minute ago. Right, that's interesting. Where's hashtag gone then? Where, what? Right, I swear to God that worked. I found hashtag, no problem. I really need to set. Basically, I've got one of these keyboards and it's set to. Actually, what is it set to? Yeah, so it's set to British QWERTY, but the keyboard itself is actually set up more like a Macintosh or American QWERTY. Basically, it's where your shift and your 2. See, that's coming back as quote. Well, on here it should be coming back as at, and quote is coming back as at. So yeah, so where hashtag is on its. Do you know what? I cannot believe that. Hang on. Oh, there it is. Right, mem. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. So if we look at the memory, you can see that the EEPROM, it has seen the full 2K EEPROM, and you can see the full 2K is available. So I should, for example, be able to go 10 print quote hello, 20 go to 10. Okay, so that should work. Now what we should be able to do is I should be able to go E save. It's 10, okay. So if I now hashtag memory again, you'll see that it has now loaded. A couple of bytes have gone in the user memory, so it has actually saved onto the permanent EEPROM of this chip. Now if I go E chain, there we go, the basic interpreter now runs. Unfortunately the escape key doesn't work, so I can't break the program from this, but if I hit reset, look, reset button rather on the controller itself, there we go, and it'll just reset. So that's working fine, and that's literally all I managed to get done the past few days. But it's quite exciting. It means that potentially these chips are more than suitable and will give a new future possibly for the Tiny Basic Computers and Project Rio project, which I really do want to get back to. It's one of these things where I've got so many different projects and work commitments and things on the go, that it's just getting around to doing stuff. And these I've had for a ridiculously long time. I bought the 644s more recently actually, and I do have a much larger one of these more development boards, but it's much larger and it has like a big. Actually, have I got it? I have shown it before. Yes, actually, it's just down here. There we go. Right, so same company, same eBay seller company. Let's get that the right way around. So, oh, okay, let's go that way. All right. So yeah, basically it's the same deal, but it's a much bigger, larger board, as you can see. So it does exactly the same as this, but in a larger space, and that makes it perfect for a prototype board for a potential new Tiny Basic prototype, being as my original one, the one, those of you that remember, you may have seen it. We built it, did work on it actually during the last series of 8 till late, and it was the one that went in the metal mini ITX case. That one was okay, but it started to have like bad solder joints and all sorts of issues, and I took it into work actually to show students, and sometimes the SD card wouldn't load, and you literally there sort of just prodding it, and then it would just load because it would make the connection. So it was really, really frustrating. And I just thought I need to build a new prototype, especially if we're switching onto these larger 40-pin dip ICs. So my thinking is I still want to stick with the Raspberry Pi terminal, but I want to switch over to Raspberry Pi Zeros, a bit like this, not this particular Zero, but one exactly like it, as the video terminal, just because Pi GFX works really well. I know we're practicing or playing with some other stuff at the moment for video terminals, but I do want to design a system where you can use other alternatives if you don't want to use the Pi method that I'm using. But what I am thinking of doing is I'm going to need to put another daughter board onto this. So something, I guess something a bit like this really. If you just ignore the IC socket. So maybe something like that. Just do like a single line pin header and then just sort of drop that on top. So the board would be like that. And then this would mount upside down, possibly kind of like that on the back of the board. And then it sort of, you could bring all the cabling forward and it gives this space for putting on things like the SD card reader, possibly something like that, little SD card reader, and speaker buzzer kind of thing, and any kind of additional switches or pins, things like that. So that's the kind of thinking, what I would like to try and build. And I might see if I can get that done between now and the new year, maybe. That's the sort of thinking. But just want to try and get on with this project, along with many, many other projects that I want to get on with. Yeah, but I'm really, really pleased with that. And that's working well. You can see there, it's the power lights on. It does have a little power switch, but that only works if you connect it via 5 volts via the barrel jack. This board has the ability, and it comes in a kit, it has the voltage regulators to regulate from 9 volts down to 5 volts, 5 volts down to 3.3. I'll be honest with you, I don't think we're going to need it because we did this. Have I got that lying around? I do, I think. Do I? No, don't. I can't see it. It's gone walkies. But do you remember we built that voltage regulator circuit, which we didn't use in the end? And it was to regulate from 9 volts down to 5 volts. And because we didn't have a heat sink on the actual regulator, it got really hot. It was so hot. And I know a few of you are suggesting at the time we should have linked it to the metal case of the chassis, just use the entire metal ITX case as a heatsink, which I wasn't too keen on doing, being brutally honest. But yeah, anyway. So that's kind of where we're at, and these are sort of development bits I've bought. But my main thinking is, as soon as we've got a prototype working, I want to get a proper PCB of my own done that we can just drop these chips into, and perhaps the start of an official kit product, maybe. Don't quote me on that because I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure, and if I'm not sure, then it'd be nice to do. But I think what we're doing, it very much has to be, or will be, a kit product. It's more about the build, more about the journey. Although saying that, the software is improving all the time. So, but we're not going to be. This won't be a Commander X16, and it certainly won't be a Aegon Light. Put it that way. We'd be running very much as the underdog, which I think everyone kind of appreciates. We always have been with this project, but yeah, it's interesting. And I hope you've been finding it interesting. For those of you who've been watching the Project Rio Tiny Basic Computer series, and also those of you that are building along, I hope you've been enjoying that. So, right. So that's that. Yes, we'll just say hello to everyone who's joined us in the chat. So, Paulio B says good evening, and hello, good evening to you. The Imp67 has also joined us. The Imp is one of our, well, actually, Paulio B is new to Patreon, so thank you very much. And the Imp67 has joined us as a member right here on YouTube. So he says, good evening, Tom. Late to the party, don't worry. Don't worry, I really appreciate you're here, really, on Christmas Eve of all things. Just watched my favourite Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life. Was that on, or have you watched it on demand? Or did I notice that was on telly? Not sure. Anyway, well, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to enjoying your live stream. Yes. I have to say, actually, since we've restarted, so this is like the third live stream that we've done. It technically it's not 8 till 8, but it's part of the 8 till 8 series. I have to say, I mean, the response from everybody and the viewing figures have actually been really, really positive for this. So thank you so much to everybody who has sent me such kind words and say how much you've really enjoyed this. I feel I just sort of splutter along. Well, I do. I splutter along, struggling to put a sentence together live, but so it reminds me, and again, stop me if I've already said this, but when I was at Cambridge, the last Cambridge Retro Computer Festival, they had one of their volunteers was doing videos and interviews, and they did a big interview with me, which I actually found a little bit awkward. It wasn't their fault, but I'm so used to kind of doing things my way that when we were like, I didn't have any control. This is going to make me sound like a control freak, but basically I didn't have any control over what was happening, and I kind of found it a little bit. I found it a little bit awkward. But basically, so we're doing this recording, and he wants to do certain things, and he turns to me and says, "So how do you make YouTube? How do you make videos then?" And I look at him and I just say, "Badly, really badly." And I think that comes across when I'm live, because there's no, as you well know, there's no hiding place. So if I don't know what I'm talking about, or lose my train of thought, or it just goes horribly wrong live, then there's nowhere to go. That's it. It's, but it's all fun and games, and I'm not taking it that seriously. I mean, I honestly really enjoy your company. I hope you enjoy what I'm doing here. And thank you for everybody once again who has subscribed and is joining me live, not only for this, but has watched this back, or has watched the other episodes of 8 till 8 back. It is great to be back doing a live stream once more. I will say hello to Brian Martin, saying good evening, and what's that? Sorry, evening all, and Merry Christmas, except spluttering time. Thanks. Is it that noticeable? Thanks. Actually, do you know what? This reminds me of something. So I say the other week, it was a couple of months ago now. I've got to be careful what I say here, so I can't go into details. But there was, or is, a new community radio station that's started up. It's not licensed or on FM or anything. It's just like online, and it made a bit of a big splash. And and for those of you who know that I actually had a broadcasting career I did some television, but I was mainly in radio, including community and local radio. And there's not a huge amount of that around here. So I had some experience. I worked for a number of stations. If you might remember, the original Wi-Fi Sheep, when we started, it was the Wi-Fi Sheep radio show, and that got carried as syndicated content on a number of different online radio stations, as well as on YouTube. But basically, this new station had sort of started up, and those you might remember that I haven't done it yet, I've been talking about it for 2 years, contemplating doing a new audio-only Wi-Fi Sheep. I say radio show, it's not the same as the old radio show. It would be more like a scripted documentary radio program, with the view of actually buying time myself and broadcasting internationally on shortwave. I do have plans to do a shortwave radio video, which I want to do on Channel 2, because it's actually a really interesting area, shortwave radio, if you're not familiar with it. And I thought it'd be really cool to have like an international, basically like a Wi-Fi Sheep radio station. It would be fully legitimate and legal, but it would broadcast across the entire of Europe on shortwave. So I thought that's really cool. Anyway, this local station, because I wanted to do this program for it, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do that internationally, I was also going to make the program available to Patreon backers and YouTube channel members, so you'd actually be able to stream it on Wi-Fi Sheep YouTube as well. I thought, well, actually, what if I could sort of offer it to this new community station, because it's, you know, it's a piece of radio programming, speech, documentary, scripted radio programming made here locally where we are, supporting the new local broadcaster. So I emailed them and I explained who I am. I explained all the different broadcasters and stations I've worked with, and I also mentioned Wi-Fi Sheep. I emailed them on my official, you know, wi-fi-sheep.co.uk domain name. I didn't hear anything, and I didn't hear anything. And then I emailed again, just saying, hi, just checking up. Where are you? How are things? Hoping to get a meeting at the actual studios. Bearing in mind, I didn't want a radio show or to be on air live. I wanted to offer them content that was going to be free for them to take, and I would make it here and then, you know, share it with them for free, basically trying to support a local broadcaster. I finally do get a reply, and they go, oh, well, we don't really see where you'd fit in. So I couldn't even volunteer my time because they were like, no, we don't want you. And the problem with this particular station, with all the community broadcasters, is they all try and be sort of hip, trendy music type stations. So it's just sort of a slightly bad presenter or DJ who then just plays music thinking they are kind of equivalent of, for those of you in the UK that know BBC Radio 1, the national youth radio service, they all think they try to be hip and trendy like Radio 1. And the way this station has marketed itself, if you just took out the community and the local name of it, it would be like so generic, it would fit anywhere in the country or even overseas, any English language pop culture market. And there's nothing about it that seems particularly local or relevant to this area. And then on top of that, I thought, well, looking at like the views and, you know, the people like yourselves are watching this live, or those of you that watch back on repeat, this program I'm doing, or sorry, live stream I'm doing right now, as terrible as it is, gets more listeners or viewers than any kind of community broadcaster would get, and especially one that isn't even on FM. You have to download an app on iPhone and Google for it. So I was like, what's the point? What is, in this day and age, what is the point? If you want to do specialist content that's very, very niche, and I appreciate this is really niche, you just do this basically, or you create something and you rent some airtime yourself, and then you just broadcast what you want. You don't need, basically, I don't need them to do what I'm doing. And I think that was kind of, it dawned on me. I was like, well, what's the point then? So, yeah. Couldn't even volunteer. We got rejected. So, good luck to them is all I can say. Right, in the chat. Here we got Michael Norton. Have I said hello to you yet, Michael? And Paolo on the end there. Hello, Paolo. How are you doing? Merry Christmas from me and my girlfriend. Hello to you both. How are you doing? Long time no speak. How are you? Hope you're well. Thank you for joining me this evening. Time, we've got half an hour to Christmas Day. So we'll carry on going. Right, that's enough of me wittering. Let's do something else. So, if you joined me last time, just move that out of the way. So, there you go. You didn't see that bit. Okay, so if you joined me last time, you might remember that as a bit of an early Christmas present to myself. By the way, none of this is sponsored or anything. I've just paid for this myself out of my own curiosity. Nothing you're going to see tonight is anyway, at least I don't think nothing you're going to officially see is in any way sponsored or endorsed. You might occasionally see something that was a sponsored gift from a previous time that's just hanging around. But everything tonight I have bought myself, and I'm not endorsing any companies or products. That said, you may remember I bought this last time. This is from Olimex. This is the Aegon Light 2. This is the Z80 8-bit computer product. Some people have tried to say this is the rival to me in Tiny Basic Computers. This particular unit itself was not so much for Olimex, but for the original creator, marketed itself head-to-head with the Commander X16. You might remember last time we were live on Saturday, I kind of said that it put me off the marketing campaign that basically seemed to just be attack David Murray, the 8-bit guy, don't get me wrong, I'm no major fan of Dave Murray anymore, but I wouldn't have gone attacking his products, you know, his project, which this did. So it put me off it for a while. But I thought, you know what, it'd be good to sort of have a look at what the rival, if they're not a rival, but see what the alternatives are. And what also interested me with this is it runs BBC Basic. BBC Basic, as in the basic for the BBC Micro, Acorn Electron, and the RISC OS Acorn world of doing things, which I am very familiar with. So it was a real, you can see it there actually on the silk screen, a real Z80. I think it's actually a proper Zilog one, real Z80. You've got the RAM, and then the I/O controller and the video, which is VGA, is actually done through the FabGL, modified FabGL libraries on a ESP32 chip, which is there. You've also got SD cards, you've got audio out, there's a reset button, onboard speaker, and you actually have some GPIO headers breakout. There's also a battery connector for a battery backup. So we bought that. Well, I bought that out last time. What I want to do now is in the box you get these little rubber feet. I'm going to print, you can buy a proper case for this. I'm going to print a really cool 3D print case for it. I just literally haven't done it yet. So what I thought I might do is, can we get those? Hang on. I'm just going to put the little rubber feet on it. Yeah, without bending. God, that does not want to go in there without bending the board. Yeah. There must be a, but is there a way of doing this? Am I not doing this right? That can't be. Really? Yes, Tom then breaks the board trying to put the rubber feet. That is ridiculous. That can't be right. Okay, you know what? That will, forget that. Right, we'll just put it on the bag. That ain't gonna work. Right. I'm just gonna break the board if I do that. Okay, so haven't really got around to looking at any of the documentation tonight, but what I did want to do was to actually see if we could actually test some BBC Basic, because one thing I have done is over the past few years I have actually written and created some, well, not really games, but some basic programs, and I thought I just want to test it. Stuff I know works perfectly on BBC Micro. What happens when you put the straight BBC Basic onto this? How does it handle it? And I thought that might be an interesting test this evening. So let's power up. So in order for you to see, you might remember this from last week or a few days ago, I'm going to do VGA to HDMI converter to go for the capture card, and then back out the other end of the capture card back to VGA so I can see it on the screen. A little bit mad, but it does work. So let's just get that in the right way. This needs a separate 5 volts power, which we'll do right now. So, okay, so that's powered up. Keyboard for this is quite interesting. So it has a USB-A socket on there. It's not a USB protocol, so you need a USB keyboard that's actually got the old IBM PS2 protocol, which luckily some of my cheap ones have. If you don't have a keyboard, it's basically like an Apple keyboard won't work. If you don't have a keyboard, then what you will need for this to work is you'll need one of these, which basically gives you a PS2, proper PS2 socket for a PS2 keyboard, and adapts that down to a USB socket. It doesn't do, it's just a pass-through. There's no logic in that. It doesn't convert any signals, so you do have to have the protocol. Luckily, my keyboard does have the protocol, so pop that in. And then we just need some USB-C power. So I've got a little bench supply, USB bench supply type thing, and I've just got a USB A to C cable. And the only slight issue, start tripping up over. There we go. Now, hopefully, you can hear it beep. Hopefully, yes, that has worked. There we are. Right. And the basic is loaded onto the SD card. It was a right pain to get the SD card working. You have to have it in exactly the correct format. I had to go through SD card writer on PC, but that then loads up, and there it is, running BBC Basic, the Z80 build of BBC Basic. Now, this is not a straight replacement for the BBC Micro. So if you have a BBC Micro program, and that program, if it's straight basic, it should work, he says. That's what we're going to test, because my stuff was straight basic. If it has any assembly language in it, bearing in mind the BBC Micro is a MOS 6502 derivative machine, okay? So if it has 6502 assembly language, that's not going to run on a Z80. And likewise, if we do Z80 assembly on here, that's then not going to port back to a BBC Micro. So a lot of the BBC Micro software doesn't work. Basically, you'd have to run an emulator layer on top of this, and it'll probably fix that at some point. It does beg the question, because they do it's called the Nano 6502. They do a 6502 board from Olimex in the same range, but then they don't do basic for it. So the only BBC Basic board is the Z80 version, which is what the Aegon Lite is here. So that's going to be rather interesting. So we're running in BBC Basic at the moment. You can see it on the screen. Just test my keyboards. Yes, keyboard's working fine. Have to remember to be in caps lock. BBC Basic is case sensitive and only works in uppercase. It was like that on the original BBC Micro. I think Risk OS, I can't remember. Risk OS, I think it's still case sensitive if I remember correctly. Anyway, right, so that's that. Now, just going to, just bear with me a minute. It's just, okay. So if we go, there we go, down here. Okay, so I've actually got a copy of BBEM, the BBC Micro emulator, running in the background on the PC. This was the thing that was actually driving the BBS screen that you saw. Brian Martin very kindly, he's actually, I think you're still in the chat, Brian, very kindly today sent me a .ssd virtual disk image file, basically that runs in mode 7, which is the teletext chip mode, and it had the saved data screens from his BBS. So what you were seeing, the BBS wasn't technically live, but it was running as a sort of like a pre-record carousel, which is perfect for showcasing the BBS. Something I really wanted to do on the live stream for a while was have that kind of like pages from CFAX type thing in the ad break, sort of, you know, tea break kind of thing we do here. So huge thank you once again to Brian for that. Yeah, so actually reminds me, just quick, there we are. So Night Owl was the BBS that you saw today. There are the details, and I think, Brian, if you're still in the chat, is it still online at the minute? Because you normally run it overnight, don't you? So it could well still be online tonight, but it is one caller at a time, and that's including if you go for the web or if you go for the port way. But yeah, so once again, a huge thank you to Brian for that, and it's always, you know, pleasure of my side to support a BBS project. And I know if a couple of other people have contacted me wanting me to look at their BBS bulletin board, so we will definitely be doing a BBS special at some point in the near future. And I hope to use the sort of the downtime around these live streams to showcase some other BBS work from other people as well. But yeah, so once again, Brian, cannot thank you enough. That's made my life so much easier, just giving me a pre-packaged thing that works with BBEM. Anyway, back to BBEM. So here it is, and I'm just, you won't be able to see this, but I'm just going to load up some images for some software that I actually wrote. Actually, no, tell a lie. We don't need to do that because I can copy and paste the basic in. So I've got Notepad open here, and this is some of my own basic code that I've written. This is for NanoGang's Lite, which if I just that's the wrong keyboard. I hate having two keyboards, two mice, can't cope. So Control A, Control C. And Brian has just confirmed, yes, it is up at the moment. So if you want to visit Night Owl, there's the details again. It is running right now. So do go and say hi. Do go and set up a free account and log in. Leave a message in the... If you got a visitor's book, I can't remember, if you had to be... I can't remember if you can just leave a note or a hello, but do go and check that out. Anyway, right, back to what we're doing. So I've copied this basic. This is basic, just a basic file in Notepad on Windows, and I should now under Windows be able to go paste, and I can paste the basic code straight in. What I probably should have done actually, which I forgot to do, is I should have wiped the previous program. So let me just let's do that again. Right. Okay. So if we now run this code, so this is something I developed. You've probably seen my my Nanagangs videos for the game I was sort of developing, and have been for the past 10 years and never really getting anywhere. This was a lighter version that I wanted to try and see if A, I could save onto cassette tape, and B, if I could then distribute it on machines like the Acorn Electron, which was the cut down BBC Micro that ran at only 1 megahertz as opposed to 2 megahertz. Oops, I'm running here. This is just a prototype, never really got any further, but it is written entirely in BASIC. A lot of people said you can't do games like this in BASIC because it's just too slow. But I've managed it. Admittedly, there are limitations. Also, the BBC Micro doesn't have a sprite engine. So the way the sprite or the character, it's actually a user-defined character. So it's text. Everything you're seeing on screen is technically made of text characters. There's no sprites here. And I did create sort of like 2 levels. When you die, it just sort of, yeah, it's just going in minuses now because it's not set up properly. And there's a few graphical glitches you can see, but yeah. So basically that's as far as I got. Apart from the fact I stopped the escape key from being pressed, which was very clever. Okay, so that's the code, and I've got it here. I've got it here rather in this file. Now that file I have saved as, if I can find it, as nanolight.bas. Okay. We'll turn off, or just unplug. Okay, so we're going to turn off the Argon light. I'm going to move my now cold cup of tea out of the way. Right. That's not turning off, that's pulling out the keyboard. Might just be quicker to take it out of the power spot. Okay, right. That's now been turned off. I'm going to take the micro SD card out, put it into my USB card reader. That way or that way? That way. Okay. I'm going to mount that onto PC now. So we'll just mount that onto the PC. Which is just off screen over there, so you won't be able to see this bit, but just bear with me. Okay. So go to copy, paste. This is literally just a copy and paste in Windows of 2 text files. The text files are both named as .bas, which should be untokenized basic. If it was tokenized, I think it has to be .bbc. I think something like that. Anyway, right, that's that done. So we'll just eject the SD card. Put the SD card back in. Power ourselves back up. Do you know what? I'm going to make life a bit easier for myself. I'm just going to plug the other end into an iPhone charger so I can just plug it in. Plug it in over here, make life a bit easier. Right, power back up. Beep, that's a good sound. That's looking promising. So the MOS, which is the machine operating system, is basically the same syntax as Acorn and BBC Micros. So if I go cat, star.cat, okay. Ah, that's interesting. So Nano Light, it's .bas, but Windows is going to put .txt on the end. Is that going to be a problem? I don't know. Let's have a look. So remembering that for basic you have to caps lock on, load. This keyboard's the wrong way around as well. So Nano Light .bas .txt. Will it read it? No, it doesn't like it. Yeah, okay, that's annoying. Right, 1 minute. Let's just take the SD power down a minute. Right. I hate Windows when it puts the sort of file names on things that you don't notice. Okay. Right. So just need to what to rename. Nano.bas. Again, sorry, I appreciate you can't see this because I haven't set up the screen sharing for this, but just bear with me a moment. How do you do viewing full file names? Because that's just going to have .txt on the end of it again. He says, right, check that. Back over here again. Beep, good, right. Bet you it's going to do exactly the same thing again. It's done it again. Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. One other program that I did want to share, and if we just go back to, we'll try this again in a moment, I promise. Oh, if actually, could I just, if I go back to, hang on, I'm just having a thought. So that's my syntax. If I go File, Save As, we'll just call it Nano for the minute. Save. Oops, didn't mean to do that. I've just closed. Okay, that's annoying. Right. Force a habit, I'm afraid. Right, okay. Power you down again. One last try, just bear with me a moment. See, what better thing to do on Christmas Eve than watch me struggle to do the most simplest of things? Okay. Right. Of course, now I've ejected the damn thing, it's not going to read the... That's better. Right. Okay. That's good. Right. So, delete that file. And we'll copy that file onto there. Eject. Back over here. Boot back up again. Okay. Catalogue. Yes. Right. Now then, does this work? Does this work? Again, I've not tried any of this, so .bass. Bad program. So, okay. Let's try everyone. Bad program. Yeah, right, okay. Well, that's me stumped. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm doing this live completely for the first time. So my logic is I've got untokenized basic in a text file. We're saving the text files as .bas for .basic because I'm assuming .bbc is tokenized and it wouldn't like that. Let me just, and I'll need to open WordPad again for this. So while I think about that a minute, unless someone else has some clever ideas, all for clever ideas tonight, let's just open with Notepad. Right. And while you're looking at that, I am just going to grab a book off the shelf just up here. We did that without everything else crashing down on me. Careful. Right, there we go. Okay. Right, so what I'm about to show you is some of the very first basic I actually ever wrote, which is properly crap, but just bear with me with the context on this. Okay, so there it is, and it's 7 lines of code, and that was created between myself and a then school friend in, that must have been about 19, I want to say 97. It may have even been 98. It was around that time. It was the end of the 90s. Now, understand the context. At that time, I would have been about 10 years old, so quite young. We had a primary school. I was still at primary school when we did this. We had a primary school full of BBC Micros. I mean, you know that. You know, I've taught this many times. Why I know the BBC Micro, because underfunded education system, and basically it was just full of BBC Micros, Model Bs, Masters. We even had some Master compacts, BBC Master compacts, the rare ones with a separate key. The computer was in the keyboard and it had like the disc. It looked more like a traditional modern PC. We even had some of those. We literally, my school was getting the entire hand-me-downs from all the richer schools from all the areas, and it was just pouring all this now junked 8-bit IT equipment. And so that's basically what we had right through the 90s into the 2000s. So this would have been the very last year 6 of, late year 5, year 6, which had been the very, very end of primary school before you go to secondary or big school. So I was always very curious about the BBC Micros, but there was no IT lessons, there was no education. You were not taught about programming at all. Basically, the machines were used as word processors. I've done a video on this. I've written articles about this for Pixel Addict as well. But I managed to find the one book in the school, primary school library that hadn't been destroyed. Because I think a lot of the program books, the machines would have been originally put in 1985, 86, I think, under the computer literacy program. And then they were joined by hand-me-downs as richer schools scrapped them in favour of Archimedes or PCs. So we would have had some programming literature at some point, even, at primary school level. But yeah, basically it all gone. No one was interested in teaching it. We were told we don't need to program. Basically, that was the attitude of the time. So I actually found this is actually my own copy of it, but this was the one book in the school library that hadn't been destroyed. Their copy obviously is now destroyed, but this is my copy that was bought. I think this was W.H. Smith's, the chain of newsagents, large newsagents, did a thing where if it was still in production or print, you could actually buy any book that was still in print. So this is actually my copy, which is, there we are. That's my old address. My mum had to put my name in the book so it didn't get confused. So this was originally 1989. So it would have been, 10 years. The book would have been 10 years old by the time I saw it at the time. And basically it was an introduction to programming. And this book on its own, even though I just literally, there was no assistance, the school didn't, encourage me to do any of this. It was just all off my own back. I thought this was completely amazing, that you could actually program the BBC Micros. You could actually write your own programs and program the computers in the school. That just completely blew me away. So this is the book that I think changed my life. You could, but it is quite, we were quite young, so many of you know I'm also heavily dyslexic. So at this time I wasn't reading particularly well. I had a very, very young reading age. I was probably struggling at the reading age of a toddler, possibly at the time. So I did struggle with this, even this book I struggled with, but I could figure it out enough to, copy what was going on. Looking back at it now, it makes a lot more sense, but at the time I didn't really understand what was going on. But it was enough that we actually managed to, I say we, it was me and a friend and another friend, wrote our own program, basically, with this book. Bearing in mind, we'd not had any lessons in BASIC, and I've not seen at this point the original BBC Micro manual. I don't know. Those, I'm assuming, either were never in the school or they got thrown out even before I started. So this was the only reference book we had. And this was the code. And that's the best thing we managed to achieve. Yeah, it's pretty horrendous. But let me just copy that. Copy. And let's go back to BBEM. There we go. And let's do a complete reset. There we go. And let's paste. That's the code. And for the first time ever, I am sharing with you my first ever BASIC program written as a heavily dyslexic 10-year-old child with no formal training or education or any kind of assistance from anyone in the school. And that's the sum of what we achieved. And we were really proud of that. So we called it DD Writer only because these DDs, double Ds kept showing up on the screen and we couldn't figure out what we were doing and why the DDs were there. So we just sort of went, well, we're not going to change the program. So and the reason I now know the reason the DDs are there is it's a dodgy VDU call. So VDU 100, 1000, and there's another 1000 at the end. Um, Basically, if I'm correct in my thinking, that's actually calling. I think it's an overflow or something. So it's calling DD. So if you put that line in on its own, that's what you get. It would just write DD. So we put. I can't read it in mode 2. Let's go mode. Let's go back to 7. I'll list it a bit. I'll list it in 7 so you can see. Right. So basically, we just put print writer, and then we're very proud with the brackets and copyright. Oh yes, copyright. That sounds very proper. Uh, so that was it, and it's utterly terrible. And the idea of it was right that we thought, well, what does it do? It doesn't really do anything. So. I think I say the school had never done any programming. I think we had a very brief introduction to Logo for Windows 3.1. So we did have these Windows PCs. That's why I did the PC project that you saw ahead of going to Cambridge, and I installed Windows 3.1. We have these Opus branded machines. That's actually why I got I'm trying to get an Opus machine from what I had at school, but I don't think I'm ever going to find them because they're quite rare machines. But that's why I've got the Opus box, which is probably the only bit of thing I could actually find. So I've got inside that now. It's got the Windows Opus branded Windows 3.1 install. Hang on, there we go. That box there. It's got the 3.1 install discs inside it that were used on the PC. It wasn't an Opus PC, but it was generic. It just loaded. So yeah, so those are the PCs we had, and we did Logo on them. And oh, by the way, because I've been whittering on again. We'll just go back, and it's now 6 minutes past midnight. It's December the 25th, 2024. It's Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, everyone. Just thought I'd add that. This is a good run up for New Year's when we're back live, isn't it? God, if I'm talking, we missed New Year. We missed the countdown. That would be a naff stream. Yeah. So, yeah. Note for self in about a week's time when we're back here again. Yeah, pay more attention. Assuming anyone. Oh, there's at least 14 of you hanging on there. So. And Parlo saying, "Merry Christmas, everyone." I quite agree. Merry Christmas to you all. Do hope you have a good day. By the way, I'm planning on being on till about past, so another sort of 20 minutes or so, and I think we'll call it a night. Because I would like to go to bed at some point, but not that I don't enjoy, your company, and obviously we do these late night streams. But obviously my fiance Anna is trying to sleep next door, and I make too much noise apparently doing this, so which is fair enough. So I said to her, I'll be on to about midnight tonight, and then we'll call it a night. So, right. Oh, by the way, I'm just going to witter on a bit more. So, just quickly. You might remember we had power problems. So, I lost all power to everything. We had complete blackout in the house, which is a bit weird. Right, it's weird because we had total blackout. So, we lost everything. Sockets, lights, the lot, but it was just this house. It wasn't next door. It wasn't the street. So it wasn't an external power failure. It was an outage. It was something had gone horrendously wrong. If you're not familiar with how British UK houses are wired, you have a ring main, and then you have it's slightly different to the continent and US. I understand. So you have all the plug sockets are on one ring main. That's upstairs, downstairs, are on the same circuit. And then you have 2 lighting circuits, one upstairs, one downstairs. And then you have a separate circuit for sort of heavy duty appliances. So things like the power showers, outside electrics, so things going to outbuildings, and also things like the oven are on their own circuit. And that's all tapped to the straight mains, 230 now, 230 volts mains. So when a light bulb goes, for example, not that it happens now with modern bulbs, but we had the old incandescent tungsten bulbs and they blow, it might trip the lighting circuit for upstairs out or downstairs. Or in the case that you have an appliance does something, it would trip the plug sockets. To have something to blow up that spectacularly that it blew everything, and it was local to this property, it was something in his house blew up spectacularly. And this happened literally about half an hour before we were due to go live, and it took everything. So I lost all the setup. I mean, this sort of stuff, does take a bit of time to set up. I lost everything, and it took our Wi-Fi out as well, so I had no internet. And I thought we might go down again during the stream. We didn't. Anyway, yesterday evening, for the first time, Anna, that's my fiance, came back, and she had some like takeaway type pizza things that you just shove in the oven. So turn the oven on and it powered up, but it didn't get hot. It was at this point that we realised that what blew up was the ring element for the fan oven, the heater element that makes the oven hot, blew up. So, because it was on and it must have blown up while it was on, took out everything, restarted everything, and then of course there was enough residual heat in the oven that it cooked the meal that we had before I came live. And yeah, and then I went, oh God, how are we going to cook the food? And then Anna looks at me and goes, how are we going to cook Christmas dinner? Because our oven's blown up, and I've ordered a replacement part, but it ain't going to get here for today now. And I was like, oh, so me and my, I suppose, bloke mind really didn't put the dots together, didn't connect the dots together. And Anna was like, we're not going to be able to cook Christmas dinner. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a disaster. So luckily we've got some plans. So the top bit of oven, the grill bit works. Anna's borrowed one of these fry cooker things to do some of it. And our neighbour, who is away, she's a Belgian national, so she's back on the continent in Belgium at the moment. I do actually have a key for her house, so her house is empty. And I emailed her, I said, could we possibly borrow your oven? So luckily we're going to be able to cook some bits in the house next door, pass them over the hedge. So I think our Christmas dinner is going to be saved. But yeah, bit of a disaster. Anyway, right, back to this programme. So luckily, hopefully nothing else will blow up. They say things blow up and freeze, so probably one of our cars will go down next. But anyway, right. So this programme, as terrible as it is, what you were meant to do with it was, and again, why I was talking about logo, was we kind of thought, well, we saw logo on, PC. We'd never seen it on the Beeb, but I knew that you could do the, hang on, that's not the right thing. I knew that you could, for example, do the draw commands. So, and we thought, okay, so it's sort of like logo. It's going to be a logo program and you can draw things. I mean, obviously, this is hugely flawed because the more I type down, I'm just covering the screen. That's not going to work. I haven't got a resolution for that. Just putting random. But you get the gist. I'm just going to start typing over the top eventually. So it doesn't really work. Yeah. So one of my little things I was thinking about, one, doing it for the Argon light, actually Beeb's Micro Agon light, and also possibly doing a version for our own tiny basic system, was to actually rewrite this program and make it into a sort of a proper little logo type drawing thing with a turtle maybe, and it can draw lines, but far better than this. The reason I want to share with you this terrible code from over 20... God, how long ago was it now? How long ago was 1997 from now? I can't work it out. It was 25 years? A bit more? Anyway, yeah. We'll say 26 years, 27, something like that. But, want to rewrite this. Luckily, I saved this because it had some value to me. The original disc it was on, which I kept, when I first got my first BBC Micro back, which was 2014, and I got a disk drive together, and I actually put the disc in to see if it would work, and it read, and I got the code off, the terrible, valueless source code, just before it, just list again, there we go, just before it actually failed. So, yeah. Okay, so we can't. I've got that in text format, but I can't get that working on the Aegon Light. I need to work that out. But it's small enough. We could, as a test, thinking about it, if we go back to, there we go. Okay. So we could actually just like, I don't know, type that listing in. So I'm just, yeah, I mean, we could just like, if you don't mind me doing some, just typing some basic in randomly. Actually, do you know what? Before we do that, I'm just, bear with me just 1 minute. I'm just going to ask Anna because I think we're going to need a little bit longer than 15 minutes to do. Hang on, let me just go and ask if we're all right for a little bit of an extension. 1 minute. Yes, we'll be all right. Ask permission. Bless her. To be fair, she has been. She works in retail. She's a retail manager for a Danish chain store. Works in local way to Telford, which is the biggest. It's not a city, but it's the biggest metropolitanised area in this county. And she's been working today, Christmas Eve. So she is extremely tired. She's been, serving customers for Christmas shopping, being on the sharp end, if you like. So I completely understand that she's a bit tired. That's why I'm like, she was totally cool with us doing this, but I'm like, I don't want to be up too late, obviously, because the room right next door is our bedroom, basically, right next door to here, and obviously she'll hear me. So, but she says it's fine for a little bit longer, so that's good. Right. That's nice, isn't it? So we've got permission. We can play with computers a bit longer, everyone. I'll just say hi to Chris. Two Chris's. Chris Ainsley, Ansley. Don't do names. I can't. I don't know why do I do names. I can never pronounce anyone's name. Hello to you and Chris S as well. Just joined. Merry Xmas, everyone. Cheers for the stream, Tom. Been watching your channel for a few years. Oh, thank you very much, Chris. Many people have been watching me for a few years now. I know I've been, when are we going to be 10 years old? 26, 2 more. So 2026, I'll have been doing this for 10 years, believe it or not. Still I've never broken through the subscriber, still minnow channel. But you know what? It doesn't matter anymore. It's not important. And I very much value the people. I've always said this. I value the people that I do have, people like yourselves. It's good. It's good to have a good quality subscribership and audience of like-minded individuals rather than the masses, because it just works better for me. Anyway, right, let's type this in. So I want to type in just to see how well this copes. You've seen it run on a BBC Micro, and so this VDU command is going to be very interesting. I don't know what on earth we'll be thinking about when we put this in. We clearly got it completely wrong, because as I said, we didn't know what we were doing, but it would be nice to kind of like sort of rewrite this program, just because it's it's a legacy thing. So Gcol, the way we just had mysterious DD letters, and so we thought, right, we can't clear it, we don't know what we're doing wrong. It's like, it seems so obvious now, but at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. So I certainly at the time did not think I would be doing this nearly 40 years old. Oops, that's not right. There we go. From a 10-year-old starting it. Also, we didn't have any like emulators or BBC Micros at home or anything. I had to use the school machines. We didn't have internet. It's sort of before. I mean, there was internet, but we didn't have it. So, there was no reference material. No one else really cared about the computers. I think they let me mess around on them because basically if they broke, they just got rid of them. They wanted them gone. Admittedly, I think it was 2002 or 3 before they actually got them removed, so they lasted into the new millennium. And Brian's saying, haven't we plugged you enough, Brian? I should add that Tom delivered a quite excellent interview. Oh, thank you very much. On Night Owl several months ago. Well worth a read. It is worth a read, even if I say so myself. It's a damn sight better than that interview I did on video for the Centre for Computing History in Cambridge. I am not looking forward to do you know what? The fact they haven't published it means they've either got behind or it was that terrible they couldn't use it. Right, anyway. I'm going with the latter. But yes, do go and check out Night Owl. Do go and check that out. Yeah, right. So that's the programme. I wonder what would happen. Can I save this? I should be able to save it. Save. We'll call it DD2. Just. Okay. We'll just catalogue again. That's interesting. It's dd2.bbc. And it's smaller, despite the fact it's exactly the same. Interesting. Okay, right. So, let's run. What happens? Okay, so that, right, so, right, okay, what on earth? Right, okay, so, can someone just check so I'm not going completely mad here? Okay. Right. That is the source code, yeah, that we ran on the BBC Micro, and it ran very, very badly. Right, so memorise that source code, yes. In fact, let me just make life a bit easier. Let me just put that in, just bear with me. Let's put that in mode, let's go mode 1. Okay, so the font's roughly the same. Right, okay. That is the source code. Yeah, and that's what I've just put into the Agon Light. BBEM? Agon Light. Yeah. In BBEM, if I run that, we get that. And if I do exactly the same thing, we get that. Let's just take that line 20 out. No. Really? What am I trying? Why am I? Gocart 7129 ain't gonna do anything until I draw something. Draw 100, 100. Interesting. What, you know what would be very interesting? I don't know. Wouldn't be able to set this up now, but we put exactly the same code into RISC-OS on the Pi and see what it did, because obviously RISC-OS has BBC Basic underpinning it. It's one of the real attractions of RISC-OS. It was built on the BBC Micro framework, if you like, for the Archimedes that replaced the BBC Micro. That's really interesting. So that doesn't work at all. I mean, it's accepting it because it's not crashing. I mean, I know it was badly written. I'm not okay. I know it was a bit of a test, but wow. To not, if let's just take the CRGs out. Oops, that won't be helping. Right. Okay, we're getting somewhere. CRG, which is graphics wipe, is a bit like CLS, but it's interesting. Very interesting. So they are some behaviours. Let's reload that back in again. Load DD2. Take 50 and 70 out. Run. You'll notice that obviously mode 2 doesn't have the same screen resolution. Mode 2 looks more like, if I go mode 1, you can see it does a reset. Mode 1, oh there we go, it's very slow switching modes. So mode 1 looks more like, I would say it looks more like mode 0, but mode 0 is extremely high resolution now. On the Beeb, okay, make sure I'm on the right keyboard. If I go mode 0, so that's basically the BBC Micro's highest resolution. Yeah. And that's mode 0. On the Agon, sorry. I mean, I suppose in the products, in the Agon's defence, it's not trying to be a BBC Micro. It's a Z80 machine that happens to run BBC Basic. So, and it does run BBC Basic. I mean, it is behaving pretty much as, in most cases, as you'd expect. But the minute you start to do anything a little bit twisted, it's extremely interesting. So that's mode 0 on the BBC Micro, and that's mode 0. Yeah. Which means my Nanogangs code probably wouldn't have ran. If it can't run, well, I mean, it did run. You saw it, it executed. It just, how it interpreted it for graphics didn't work. So the graphics routine for the Agon Lite is clearly different, or how you'd have to write BASIC is clearly different to what you do on a BBC Micro. And I'm guessing a RISC OS machine. I'm really tempted to test that now, but I can't because it's getting on a bit late, and I'll have to find a Raspberry Pi with RISC OS on it, and I don't know if I've got one to hand. That's going to really annoy me now. That's really going to really bug me, actually. Do you know what? I'm looking just to see if there's a Pi that I know has got RISC OS on it that we could try. But I've got to. Yeah, this is ironic considering the amount of work I did for RISC OS. I now don't have one on hand. Where's my original Pi gone? He says, is it the hand? No, I can't see it. You prep this stuff and then you kind of need stuff that you don't know where it is. No, it's gone walkies. It's somewhere. Yeah, no. We shall have to come back to that, I think. But that would be extremely interesting to just see what RiskOS does, really. So I think what we can learn from this is that, yes, Beeps Basic on it works. Yes, it does have some graphics routines, but it sort of behaves like you'd expect, but it's not fully compatible. So the program ran, but we just didn't get anywhere. And CLG on this seems to completely wipe everything, as opposed to the kind of weird thing it did on the BBC Micro. Yeah, I'm just, if I knew where my original Pi was, I would grab, it should be in its box, I would grab that, because I know the RiskOS card is actually with it. And we'd power that up, but I don't know where that is. And I don't think there's another machine that works, he says. Well, that's no good. I've cannibalised that. The board isn't in there. That's useful. Don't think I've got one. I can't remember where it is offhand. No, it got put in a very safe place. Oh well. The problem with this place, I have too many safe places to put things in, and I have no idea where they are. Interesting though. Very, very interesting. If we go back to, there we are. Go back to BBM again. So, yeah, I should probably rewrite that so it actually does like a proper little logo program. As I said, I can rewrite this to make it work on the Beeb. I could get it to work on the Aegon Lite, and it'd be really cool to make a version in Tiny Basic to run on our own system as well. That's simple enough to do. I mean, it's not going to be a particularly useful program, but just as a demo exercise, it would be probably worth doing. I'm still looking to see if my Pi's going to show up, and it's not. I put it somewhere. Never mind. We'll have to forget that. One last thing then I will show you while we're here. I've got some other source code, which is another program I wanted to try, and we'll have to load that in through disk image, so just bear with me. We load 0, and where did I put those? There we go. So we'll just do a reset. And on the B, oops, let's just catalog drive again. So I did play around with something, another sort of, again on my sort of nanogangs concept, again trying to build a smaller, more compact game that might be able to go on a cassette tape while still retaining BASIC. And again, I wanted to see if these would port, but I don't think any of them would port onto the Aegon. I don't think it's going to support stuff, but let's see. So I'll show you this quick. So yeah, that was the basic. Nope, that's the wrong file. Apologies. I loaded in the wrong. I've loaded in the wrong thing. Hang on. No, I have loaded it in. What have I? Best laid plans. Right, try that again. Right, so it's not that one. By the way, you see the DD file? That's where I saved. I must have just saved the source code onto a random disk image that I was working on. So that's why I managed to recover it, because I said the original disk failed, unfortunately. So let's try that again. So one of these doesn't work, the other one sort of works. So let's try that. Okay, that's good enough. Right, so I was experimenting with this just two color top down. There should be some texture, but it's obviously not there. But you can see how the texture was around. You see the artifacting around the actual little character, but it was this little basically it was going to work a bit like, you know, Atari Adventure. Do you remember that with the dot and the maze you had to go around on the Atari 2600? It was kind of going to be a kind of like a clone of that, but with my Nanogang's character franchise. It's not really a franchise, but you know what I mean. It's my IP. So I created this little space with this level where you'd actually go from screen to screen. It wouldn't scroll. You'd actually go from screen to screen. All written in BASIC. Again, no sprite engine, so it's all with text characters. But you could create objects and you could plot objects into the space, and it would actually know where those were and how not to bump into things, or basically allowing you to kind of walk behind stuff. So walk behind the hedge, but not through the hedges. And it also had like this isometric type shading and shadowing to give a feeling of depth. But again, black and white, or black and a colour. Basically, it was mode... What mode was that? 8? I can't remember. It was the mode 1, but in black and white, whatever the screen mode for that was. But this, again, was another prototype of song I was working on some time ago. We never really got any further with, but there we are. So I was really hoping we could just lift the basic. If I escape that, let's go back into text mode. I was hoping we could just lift the basic and plop that straight in and see what it did on the Aegon, but clearly that might have... I mean, again, these VDU 19, see them here, VDU 19 commands, they might not work either, which would be interesting. So, yeah, okay. Well, that's something for a future live stream. Speaking of future live streams, I should say. There we go. So this was the proposed schedule for Christmas and New Year. Obviously, the 24th, where we started, now the 25th, was Xmas Eve live. I intend to be back on the 31st of December from roughly the same time, 10:30, for New Year's Eve live, where we'll probably have another round of BBS, and I should be joining you about 20 minutes later, so about 10 to the hour. Where we'll count in, hopefully I won't miss it, we'll count in New Year's Eve together. We'll be back on the 11th of January, that's the Saturday, from 2000 hours. Normal service will then resume for 8 till late. Reminder once again, if you have enjoyed this stream this evening and want to... we'll just say hello to Robert Diggle. Hello, Robert. How are you doing? Thank you very much. Another... I think you are on the members list, aren't you? Were you on the members list? Or used to be? That's embarrassing. Sure you were at one point. Anyway, how are you, sir? Good to see you. How are you? Where are we? Yes. So, Patreon backers... so patreon.com/Wi-Fi sheep. Robert says no, but maybe once. Maybe what? I think you were once. Yeah, doesn't matter. Anyway, I really appreciate when you were. So thank you so much, and great. Merry Christmas to you, by the way, and great to see you on the stream. So that's Patreon. We also obviously have YouTube channel members starting at 99 all the way up to $2.99. If you want to support me right here on YouTube. We're about to call it a night, but if you want something else to do this evening, then the Night Owl is streaming, or I say streaming, is live now. The Night Owl BBS that we featured at the start of our live stream is live right now. You can dial in either via nightowlbbs.dns.net, port 6400. Alternatively, if you want to just tap online from your web browser, very easy to do, fish.ccl4.org/JS Night Owl, and that will be running probably for a good few more hours into the early hours of the morning here on Christmas Day. The time, 39 minutes past midnight on Christmas Day, the 25th of December 2024. Thank you so much, everyone, for your company this evening. Once again, may I wish you a very Merry Christmas. Hope you have a peaceful night for those of you that are now thinking about going to bed. I know I am. We'll do this all again for New Year's Eve live. I'll see you on the 31st of December. Until then, from myself and Anna, right here in Wi-Fi Sheep headquarters in Shropshire, England, may we wish you a Merry Christmas and a very peaceful night. Thanks so much for your company. Good night.